So there's a question that's been weighing on my mind that I've been seeing and hearing a fair bit of recently on the internet and in real life. It's, do I need to know how to play an instrument to compose? Do I need to play a musical instrument to write music? Yeah, etc., etc. And I kind of get it. It's learning an instrument's hard. Learning an instrument takes time. It takes money. Sometimes it's a storage thing. I mean, pianos are not cheap and they're not small. And half my room is instrument storage at this point, it feels like. And some people would rather just start writing right away. They want to write music. They don't want to play it. And there are some examples of composers who don't play instruments. There's wind band composer John Mackey. He writes some of the best wind band music I've listened to or played. His recent clarinet concerto was mind-boggling. And there's some examples people like to throw around. I'm not entirely certain how true most of them are. Like Wagner. People like to say Wagner wasn't very good at instruments. And I'm like, well, our idea of very good might have been just fine at many instruments. We're a few hundred people telling stories away from the actual man himself for most of us. But on the flip side of that, there are thousands of composers who play instruments. Basically every major composer you can think of, with very few exceptions, plays an instrument. And I want to include your voice in that, because singing is just as much of an instrument as playing the piano or playing the violin or saxophone or something. And for every great composer, it feels like recently, every great composer who cannot play an instrument, there's a lot of people who want to take that as an example and think, I don't need an instrument to write music. And in essence, these days, you can be right. I started out my composing career, I didn't write at the piano. I plugged things into MuseScore because that was easier. And I look back at my early work and I was like, wow, that's kind of gross. It doesn't make a lot of sense. A lot of these composers will be in the same issue. Their music's going to be kind of unplayable and usually annoys the people who have to play it. Even in just trying to find examples of composers who didn't play instruments, I ran across multiple testimonials of musicians who had played new music by composers who don't play an instrument or think they don't need to play an instrument to write. I've even had such experiences. I volunteered to play some new music for some composing students at the college I go to. And, those people learned how to write music by kind of just plugging notes into a program and thinking, yeah, real musicians are going to make this sound just as good as the computer does. I hate to break it to you. I hate to be the one breaking this to you. Unless you are very, very good at double bass. 16th notes at 200, not going to sound great. Not going to sound really clear. Especially in the low register of the instrument. It's not going to project that much. And when I'm fighting against a bass trombone, I'm going to have some issues. And I don't want to discourage people from writing. I don't want this to sound like I'm discouraging people from starting writing before they know how to play an instrument. That composer I just mentioned, he's gone on to produce several more works since then, and they've just been getting better. He takes a lot of feedback really well. But what I want to discuss is how learning to play an instrument is valuable as a composer. It's incredibly valuable. I'm a composer. It's in the channel title. It's whatever you want to call it. But I'm also a multi-instrumentalist. I've got... You can't even see them. There's a bunch of instruments sitting right here, right out of the camera view. You can see a guitar, you can see another guitar, and there's a saxophone, a trombone, recorders, keyboards. I play 40 plus instruments. I play basically anything I can get my hands on. Saxophones, I play all of them. Flutes, I play all of them. Clarinets, I play pretty much most of them. High brass, low brass, strings, the accordion. I've got a viola sitting right here. It's sitting on my piano. I've got recorders on that shelf. I played the timpani in a concert band last year. I've even played an oud one time. That was a really cool experience, actually. I had a really good time doing that. But everything and anything I can attempt to play or learn, I get to take that chance. And I firmly believe that is one of the things that has helped me the most in my composition and my writing. Why do I say that? It's really simple, honestly. With each instrument I learn, each instrument I play, I feel like I understand more and more about writing for those instruments. I feel really confident in my writing for like clarinet and saxophone because I play those instruments regularly. I'm in a big band, I'm in a wind ensemble. Even the instruments I only play like occasionally or I can't play very well, every time I pick those up and play them, mess around with them even, I feel like I learn and understand better how to write well for those. Take trumpet for example. I'm a very bad trumpet player. I can barely play to an E in the staff. That's not great. But even then, not being able to play well, I understand, like, personally, how taxing playing in the upper part of your range can be for a trumpet player. I understand the physical toll that takes on its players. And even though I can play a G below the staff, it doesn't sound good. My MuseScore is my primary notation software. That tells me G below the staff is playable. And it is. But it doesn't tell me that it's not going to sound good. I understand that better because I've played a trumpet. I've played a low G on the trumpet. And maybe it's because I'm a less experienced player. Better players can do it better, There's tons of things you learn playing the trumpet. I understand how mutes change the sound and how they physically affect what you're playing. This is all in spite of the fact that I can barely play the trumpet. Because of this, I feel like my writing is easier to understand and it sounds better just because I understand the limitations and characteristics of instruments better than someone who just looked up a range chart for them. Take for example this piece I played in a concert band recently. It's a fairly nice piece, all things considered. I really enjoyed listening to it. But I could tell when I was playing it, the composer didn't really understand how a timpani worked. When playing the timpani part, I had to handle changes between notes because timpanis have to be retuned every time you want them to play a different note. I had to change those in an incredibly short amount of time. Something that was pretty hard. This wasn't a slow piece, but it had a lot of fast switches on the same two drums. And of course, when you open a timpani part and there is not pre-written out tunings on it, that's how you can tell something is really weird, or when the tunings are completely wrong. Contrast that with another piece I played for the same concert, where the markings were flawless. It told me exactly when I needed to change to every note, and they gave me 8 measures to do it in. And on top of all this learning and understanding kind of thing, I feel like being an instrumentalist has helped me in my career as a composer. It's helped me get my music played. It's given me connections that I feel will help me for the rest of my life. As someone who plays bari sax in a big band, my big band charts get read pretty often, because they know I'm a reliable player and they like me. So they're willing to give my music a chance. Sometimes they don't like it. Sometimes they do, but they're always nice about it and they give me that opportunity. Same goes with my wind ensemble writing or my handbell choir arrangements. Because I'm in those groups, I get the chance to bring them my music and have it played. I feel like it could be hard as a composer to market yourself alone, as a composer. I genuinely believe that 75% of the opportunities I get because I'm an instrumentalist. I get because I'm playing in these ensembles. And these connections are what have allowed those opportunities. I feel like the point I'm kind of trying to make is, well, you can compose without playing an instrument. You can only benefit from learning how to do so. Or how to play a lot, Musicians who play your music can tell when you don't play an instrument. There are such numbers of small idiosyncrasies in each instrument, If I pull out my clarinet and I finger a B flat and a B, every clarinet player knows what I'm talking about. I'm not going to write a trill over that set of notes because I understand that clarinet doesn't make that sound good. That's a difficult jump for players to deal with. If you open a wind ensemble part and there's a trill from A to C, yeah, they can make it happen. It's not going to sound good. It's not going to be pleasant. And that'll tell them right away the person who wrote that is not a clarinet player. And yes, while you can learn these one at a time through trial and error and through feedback, it's probably quicker to learn even the basics of each instrument yourself. And just, I feel like your understanding then becomes more in-depth and personal, I can look at an orchestration textbook and can tell me, avoid B flat to B on the clarinet. That's a bad place to play. But it's not going to tell you why. It might explain, if it's a really good book, B flat is open mostly, and then B is all fingers. And that's a hard switch for clarinet players to make. But that's not going to internalize it as much as it has where I've played clarinet since I was 11. And that fingering is just, you don't do that. You don't write music that goes there. You know, it's built in here. I don't need to consciously think about it. And this kind of stuff also applies to voice. You know, your voice, like I said earlier, is as much an instrument as any combination of wood and strings is. Since I joined choir in my second year of college, my ability to really understand like vocal writing is just skyrocketed. It's gone off the charts. I have a piece I wrote my freshman year that I looked at recently and I was like, wow, this is just terrible. You know, it's technically correct. People can do that. People can sing it. It's not enjoyable to sing. It was technically correct, but stylistically, let's say stylistically flawed. And to be honest, picking up singing is way easier than picking up a clarinet. You know, you can get one of these for $100 if it's really crappy on eBay. But if you want to sing, start singing, you know? Of course, there's a bit more than that, but it's an easier process to get into than picking up an instrument financially and mentally. You know, it's when I see these questions, do I need to know an instrument to compose? It's usually coming from someone who doesn't know anything about music. They want to write music. And yeah, you can do that. But it's easier to write music when you understand it. It's the same problem I have when I see these people like selling chord packs for music producers. It's like, oh, you don't need to understand music theory. We'll just sell you this bundle of 600 4-chord loops. Okay. Why? You crack open a theory textbook, and maybe it doesn't make the most sense in the first day, but you come back to it in 3 weeks, and you can understand how to build your own chord loop. It's not rocket science. You know? So these kind of people who want to get into composing, but can't play an instrument, don't understand theory, you're going to have a bad time. It's going to be rough. Especially if you're working in this kind of Western classical tradition. You can figure it out through trial and error. You can figure it out through loading up a digital audio workshop and plugging away until things sound good. But it's going to take so much longer than just trying to learn the basics behind all of this. You know, people like to say the Beatles didn't know music theory. I guarantee you after their stint in showbiz, they understand music theory, the ones that are alive. And maybe they don't think of it as conventional music theory, but they understand things sound better together. Maybe they don't understand why, but they know they do. That's music theory. I guess what I'm really trying to say is, well, you can like learn through books and you can learn through books and copying down scores and plugging away in a digital audio workshop. I think a real genius composer, one that people like to listen to and play, will not understand music better through some fluke or, you know, being born with talent, but because they themselves understand music because they make it. You know, this is going to shine through in their music. I like to think it occasionally comes through in mine. But yeah, I wanted to get that off my chest. It's been bothering me recently. I browsed several social media-esque websites that are meant for composers, and I see these like beginner questions like, oh, how do I start writing for piano? I don't play the piano, by the way. Learn to play the piano. Learn the basics, you know? You can pick up a crappy keyboard for $30. And hey, it's not going to be as nice as a semi-weighted 88-key piano or digital keyboard that you have to plug in to do anything with. It's going to teach you at least something about the instrument. When I see these beginner piano pieces with like, you know, an 18th in the left hand, just something that normal people will never be able to reach, I think to myself, you know, like, have you tried to pluck this out at a piano? Can you reach this by yourself? And I feel like so many people, like, they try this with such good intentions, and I fully support any person who wants to start their own composing journey. But there are easier ways to do it than just guessing and hoping. You know, I understand not wanting to learn music theory. That seems stupid and reductive and boring, and it sounds like science you're trying to apply to art, you know? A lot of people I know have the same misgivings. But music theory is not chemistry, where you can only apply one one formula to a problem to get the right answer, you know? Music theory is there to help you understand why music does what it does. It's very much in line with the concept of teaching a painter. You know, there's different methods of painting. Of course, you can ignore all that if you want to. That's basically how I view music theory. It's a tool. And it's how I view playing instruments. For me, it's a tool. I play the clarinet, I play the saxophone, I play everything else because it helps me write. I also just love playing. Playing is a dream to me. It's something I've always enjoyed. But it's in my compositional toolbox. It's just another tool. It's just something that helps me write better and easier. So yes, you can compose music without playing an instrument. I always think and always advocate that it will be easier the more instruments you play. Hell, even just playing one will make it so much easier on you. But yeah, that's big rant today. I just wanted this. I felt very passionately about this. It also gives me an excuse to brag about the fact that I play 43 instruments, not counting percussion. And I kind of felt like it would be nice to give you all my take on the subject. So, that's all. And thanks. I'll see you next time.